There may be things that lead our lives to make us live more productive lives. For this is my prayer to you, trusting, believing in Jesus' name. As you sit, thank you so much. I would request that we try to come a little bit in front so that we be more interactive. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you are sitting in a row that is 6 from this one, kindly consider you are not with us. 6 rows from the one where, from this one here, 6 rows, you are not with us. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll hand over to Lilo to introduce us for this afternoon session.
Happy Sabbath. Happy day. So today we are talking about something we all know in one way or another. We're talking about madeni. Yeah? Everyone knows madeni in one form or another. And I am sure we have now recently launched with mobile phones into an unprecedented era of borrowing. Yeah? Never before. Even the government jumped in on it and said, no, but here, Youth Development Fund, Hustler Fund. How many tried to see how much they can get on Hustler Fund? I tried. I think I got 700 shillings. Well, I could have gotten 700 shillings. And we all know the steep terms that loan itself had, right? You know, I asked myself, what business can I start with 700 that will pay back almost 30% in interest? But recently, as latest as last Sabbath, we talked about how church are planning to go talk to banks. Is there a mechanism to talk this mic? Because it's on and off, right? Is it consistent or it's on and off? On and off, okay. It sounds a bit more consistent now. No, it's not. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Okay. I don't know if this monitor works, so maybe I don't know how to use it. But yes, so I was saying the church was planning to we are planning to look for a loan as well and approaching members to give us soft loans so that we can retire the land purchase project and give ourselves some break before we start thinking about now how we develop our land. But we were discussing and we said, many of us won't come out right and say it, but I am not a very good money manager. So I struggle to maintain what little debt I have. And I wanted we asked ourselves with Pastor and said, we think this is a good topic to talk about because many of us shy away from it. Even in the Sunday churches, if I recall, we would hear a lot about how the Lord will bless you if you give. But they don't really tell you that really to survive in this Nairobi, you need more than your salary. Is it not? Am I lying? No, I'm not lying. You need more than your salary. And I don't know if, I remember talking with some friends in the office and we had a very hilarious scenario of where someone was saying, I borrowed in M-Pesa, then I borrowed in Tala to pay M-Pesa, then I went to branch to pay Tala and M-Pesa, and you know, it became a whole vicious cycle of, nito nini? Kiswahili imepotea. Unfortunately, I was very good at Kiswahili, but at writing, not speaking, because ukikuja mbele ya watu ina disappear. But yes, inakuwa ni one hand gives the other. Inapiga two musical chairs from one organization to the next. Pata potea, yes. Karibu niseme paka potea. But so today we are going to be discussing debt from two angles. One, what does debt mean for us out there? As a professional, as an individual, when you take debt, how does the bank look at you? How does the government look at you? How does CRB look at you? Ukiprint CRB report yako sahi, nani atakuangalia kupatia deni? If a friend told you, I can only lend you money if you give me your CRB report, nani atapata loan leo? Iyo jibu kimoyo moyo, please. So I'm going to welcome Elder Londe to start with. First, we want to define debt, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you so much, Lilo. I'll be reading some little notes that I made through. I hope if I stand here and from where I am, I'm audible enough for all of us. The subject of debt is what do you call it? A complex issue for the world we live in today. I'll be talking for our local environment. Unfortunately, I'm not an economist, I'm not an accountant, but the reason why I'm in Nairobi is to try to make ends meet by working for an institution that handles money. So I work for a bank where people come to put in their money, and with the money they put in, they use it to lend to other people. So when they give the money out to people, a loan is created. So that is a circle that has started. So whoever has been the loanee is a debtor to the bank. So an aspect of debt has started. So these guys, when you take the money, there's something called a rate. I'm trying to give a scenario, or maybe to give understanding of how debt comes into a book. So when you take the loan, they give you the loan, then they start charging you some little amount on top of it. They say like you've taken loan for 100,000. According to you, I think 6.5 of this amount I'll charge you on top for every month for the duration that you'll be paying back this loan. So that interest is what, for the bank, they earn. Now this goes to the bank. There's some mechanics behind it that it works with. So ultimately, when you are a good person, you continue paying what you repay monthly, what they call premium or repayments. Then ultimately, after 16 months, after 12 months, you have repaid the whole amount, meaning the 100,000 that you took plus some benefit for the bank. So it happens at individual level, at corporate level, and even nationally. As a country, our debt, the debt that the country owes, is roughly, I think, 69% or so of GDP. Meaning, of all the money that the government makes, the taxes we pay, 70% of it goes into servicing debt. That sounds like an outrageously high ratio, isn't it? Out of that 69%, only 30% is domestic. So that brings another complex thing. So that you appreciate how, as a country, how those things cascade down to me and you as individuals. Of the 60%, 30% is domestic, meaning 40% is foreign. So when it's foreign, it means like we borrowed money from someone outside the country. Could be through IMF, could be World Bank, could be some other foreign entities. Let me call them like foreign bodies. They could be through GTZ, could be some other agency that we've been seconded through IMF and World Bank. Specialized bodies. Let me say if you're doing roads, there's someone they know who can do the road better. So they forward to you that person who now guarantees that money that you pay later. You understand? So the foreign one gets more complex because we will not pay them in Kenya shillings. You see, the one we have locally, when I buy a T-bill, I've lent money to the government. So it's on the government's book, it's considered as a debt. They owe to the citizenry. So they pay you either coupons or interest that you get when you buy the T-bill, or coupons that you get when you buy the T-bond, which is long-term. So for the foreign one, the reason why it gets complex is those guys expect their monies back in the currencies that their countries work in. if an American and I lent the government money in dollars, I don't want you to pay me in Kenya shillings. You pay me in dollars. And as you may be aware, today, in the parallel market, I don't want to talk about the real banking market. The parallel market, the dollar goes for, I think, 150 shillings. So it makes it a little bit more expensive. So coming back to our conversation today, out of that, debt is money that you owe someone. It could be informal or formal. In this manner, I could have spoken with Lillian here to lend me 2,000 shillings. At the point that I have that 2,000 shillings, she becomes the creditor, I become the debtor. That is the language. I hope I'm getting this right. People who studied business, I hope I'm getting those things right. Yeah. So when I owe her as a debtor, I'm obligated to pay her. Sometimes it could be at 0 interest. Sometimes it could be at whatever rate. And most of the time, when I go to borrow, I am terribly in need. And I accept anything, not knowing the consequences of my blind eye to agree to anything. We don't quite sometimes read the dotted lines in the contracts we go into. And that is something we'll come to handle, the impact of that as a little at the end. Now, I hope we are clear now on what a debt is. Debt, it could be financial and non-financial. We should not look at it like until I give you money is when you owe me. You could owe me substances that are tangible. Like, I'm running an event. I need infrastructure for the event to run. Like now, we are talking using electronic implements. So if we did not have these implements and we borrowed them, at that point, we owe whoever gave us these implements the value of those implements. So that needs to be very clear, that debt is not necessarily financial. It could be non-financial. Now, the second step is to, what are the types of these debts? Now, a debt could be secured and unsecured. Non-secured means there's nothing covering the amount of help or support you are getting from a creditor or a lender. When you go to a bank, I'll use 100,000 shillings because it's a bare minimum that is nominal. It's something that we can work with most of the time. Now, I go to a bank and I want 100,000 shillings. They'll look at me as a person based on various aspects. If I can get it unsecured. Unsecured is literally as it is. It means I'm not covering it with anything. And for the bank, for them to agree to give it to you or to owe to them money that is unsecured would mean that they look at me based on various factors. I'm able to repay them this money plus the interest that they would want to earn out of me. Just as an individual, as Olonde, they'll take it. Secured would mean that this 100,000, they are willing to give it to me. But they've looked at all the factors surrounding my circumstance, and there's a feeling or there are suggestions in my metrics that I am not able to repay this as Paul. So, they require or they request me that before they advance to me this facility or this credit, I need to give them something as comfort that I will be able to repay them back this money. Now, it means now two things. One, for me to access this money, I'll have to have something equivalent to the amount of money that I have, which I am unable to convert into money that I need. Are we clear there? I have a car, I have land, I have a house, or I have chattels. Chattels are movable properties. I have utensils, I have a radio system in the house, I have beds, I have TV, stuff like that, that I can put all together to secure my 100,000. So I list all of them. The bank will come to assess or make an arbitrary assessment that these things are sufficient enough to collateralize or to cover for the 100,000 shillings that I am seeking from the bank. So this is important because, you see, I told you I work for a bank. Me, as person who works for the bank, the money that the bank is making is not literally mine. It's for the shareholders. So there's that interest that has to be protected and good business practice so that they secure that interest. So that describes the two types of debt that exist. Now, unsecured debt may not necessarily be in literal cash. When you go to banks and you look at the array of products that they have, unsecured cash could be in terms of a credit card. It's normally very easy to acquire because banks are looking for mechanisms, or institutions that lend money are looking for mechanisms, ways to reach out to the general public. There is competition. So a number of institutions have made it easy to acquire a credit card. Remember, at the point that before you go to acquiring the card, you probably have had a history with an institution. You've been keeping your money with us, you've been receiving your salary, so we know that Paul's salary is this range. So if I give him this card with a limit of matching his salary, it's kind of secured. So on my side, I feel they don't ask anything more. Just fill up a form, but we know we'll catch you when your salary starts checking in. You are able to repay whatever thing you've taken from us. So that briefly describes the two aspects of debt, the two types of debt that are there. Is debt good or bad? Now, I would want to get some, maybe 3 or so responses from the crowd. Is debt good or bad? I've seen Eldo Dongo.
Thank you. I want to say briefly, it is both good and bad. Because what decides is the intention. Thank you.
He's saying debt, the answer is split in 50-50. It's both good and bad. It depends with the intention where you are acquiring debt. There's King Oina.
Debt that increases your productivity is good. Problem is when you take debt and you don't increase productivity, then you'll not be able to service the debt, and then that becomes a bad debt.
Thank you. And any other? I think what Elkanah is saying is you should only get into debt or go to borrow when you intend to fulfill the real reason why you are borrowing, isn't it? Yeah. And that would bring me to a question. Would I borrow? Am I able to pay my rent? Am I able to buy food for my family? Would I borrow to feed them? I mean, to feed my family, pay my rent and stuff like that. Because at the point that you get there, you don't have the money to do that. And you take money, put in a hole. We have a Lakoech here.
So I'm saying it's a no-no.
Yes.
That's a no-no.
Thank you. Okay, fine. Helda Nyanga?
Actually, I was also following up on what Erikana.
I want our young people to also contribute to this.
I think I'm in agreement with the brothers who have actually shared earlier.
Yes.
One of the problems, when you mention a debt and people don't want to hear of it, is because people take it, they don't actually assess the ability to repay. And that's why we have problem with Fuliza and the things our leader was alluding to earlier, that you take this one to pay here and to pay here. And the problem part of it is you take 700 from Hustler Fund, and then you take from the other one. I don't know, it is Mshwari. I don't know whether it is. Now, Mshwari, you take 1,000, and then you don't pay even the 700. You pay 300 in Fuliza. So you are carrying debts both sides. But if you are taking a debt to eat, then that is a no-go zone. You should take a debt. Let's say probably you have won a tender and you are supplying and you're going to be paid, and you don't have the capacity to supply, but you have the capacity to borrow to enable you to supply. But when you're also paid, remember to return back where you borrowed. That one makes sense. So all these facilities, I don't think they are in place for you to eat. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the responses. I wish I would get a response from young people. Ideally, if you may remember. Oh, okay. Just behind El Dodongo. Thank you.
Happy Sabbath. I want to reason differently. I think you can borrow to eat. Yes. It's only dependent. You know, when you talk of borrowing, there are many factors that come with it. Yes. It may be the amount which you're borrowing. Yes. It may be how you're able to facilitate that debt. I mean, some of us have been raised through debt. Your parent would go and borrow in the shop and probably pay the next month, and we've survived. So if you say that we are to sleep hungry and they could borrow and probably pay, I would not understand. So I think it's relative. In that kind of sense, yes, you can. You can borrow and eat and have your children go to school, and then things will follow suit.
Thank you for that. Perhaps maybe the clarification that I will provide, you see, that debt was taken with intention, a correct intention. You say like the way you go to the shopkeeper, every parent in the neighborhood had a page. Nimechukua sukari kilo moja, this today, the next time is this, the other time is this one here. When salary comes in, before parents will check home, they check with the shopkeeper. Give me my schedule, then they clear the folio. I think that debt was not bad debt. It was debt with intention, and you look at the honesty, the integrity in part of the obligor. They honored their part. The problem comes in for someone who, shopkeeper A has my folio, and when the month comes, I start building allegiance with another shopkeeper. So that in the next month, because this month, by building allegiance, I mean, I'm now buying stuff on cash at this point. Then I build the allegiance. Next month, when I come, they will want not to dishonor the kind of allegiance I've built with them. They'll want to advance the credit facility to me as well. So when you're a person who you build allegiance, break it, go to the next one, like that, I think you're building a bad history. But the intention is clear to honor the obligations that has been advanced to you priorly. You are not doing something wrong. Similarly, in terms of either paying school fees, because you see, I think as we may be aware, sometimes we don't have the literal financial muscle to pull up those things at once. But there's capacity to build it over time. And as in our communities, I don't want to say Africans, we are more communal. So you find like if you were to be left alone, you'd be surprised how fast you can move. But at the expense of a lot of things in our community where we live, we still support our parents, we support our siblings, we support sometimes even people you do not know. It is not bad, but it is part of the social capital we build. It is sometimes hidden somewhere under. And that is why it is difficult, or it was difficult for our parents to move by themselves. Me, my dad was a lastborn. And having been a lastborn, he lived a lot with the people in his father's house, not in my grandfather's house. So over time, we realized people whom we thought were his brothers and sisters were not really his biological brothers and sisters. Those are people who were putting up with my grandfather and grandmother. And subsequently, those people found themselves in his household. Their children, we would find ourselves at those people's places. You see, that kind of thing. So it's difficult to disentangle yourself from that kind of chain easily. But if there's a plan, it makes it, what I want to say is that it makes it difficult for you to just run away on your own. You'd find if you try to do that, you disenfranchise yourself from the society, which is not really what we are meant to do even as Christians. You don't, when God blesses you, he blesses you to bless others. So we cannot run away from it. You'd find I'm able to run on my own, but the things that surround me are much more dire for me to respond. So in responding, it limits the pace at which you can do your stuff, but it makes you a more responsible human being. God, in the Bible, we're told, like, those who lack will not miss amidst us. It's the response, it's how we respond that matters. So I think that responds to that kind of concern. We should not attempt to dissociate ourselves from the people who live amongst us. Where you can help, support. But let the support not be at the expense of yourself. I hope that is clear. Yeah. So, debt per se, as I said, it could be bad or good. It depends with the intention. And we need to be very deliberate on how we handle debt. I think nationally you've seen the efforts that are being done by government. Today we have this kind of tax, we have that kind. That is the only mechanism that government raises its revenue. That is how it gets its money back. So those taxes are meant to help the government have money in its pockets to help schools that we have, like we are seated in Bora Primary. Some of us were in better schools than this one here. So at the back of the government's mind, how can I be able to reach this? Where is the gap? Or where is the hole that I can plug in? So those mechanisms help the government to raise funds. So in raising the funds, they are trying to mitigate I'm looking for the correct term. They are trying to look for a mechanism to reach out to more people so that other people can also rise up. I know it is something that is difficult for all of us as citizens of the Republic of Kenya, but there has to be a point. Even in our normal households, there are particular sacrifices we put. I remember Elder Coach said, like, there's a time that he had a lot of vegetables in his house, but for a good purpose. You break out from somewhere like that or that. So over time, you find like you have a buffer. Or even normally in financial management, you're told like, try to save more than you earn. The reason you do that is so that after some time, you have a little surplus for yourself. I hope we are clear up to that point. Now, the next point that I wanted to go into is little classical strategies of how to run or to come out of debt. There are more classroom, but if put in practice, they are more, how do you call it? They are difficult to adhere to. But when put into practice, they have been proven over time to be able to work. More so for Christians. I think like 3 quarters ago, we had a lesson that 13-week program, Sabbath school lesson discussion that was teaching or was expanding on us as Christians on how to be able to come out of debt. Now, there are more like 6 steps, textbook described. I used the word textbook because we rarely or we are unable to follow any of them. So we will discuss. One is earn more. And earn more. Earn more than you spend. It means spend more than you earn. Spend less than you earn. Thank you for that correction. When I started working out of school, one of my bosses told me, with your salary, or we are a group of us, he told us, like, with your salary, you see, you don't need to stay in a house that costs more than a quarter of your salary. So a number of us ended up, we were working somewhere in Westland, so a number of us ended up staying in Kitengela, others in Kikuyu, some people past Gashie. Then over time, see, Nairobi is Nairobi, you find it that you spend a lot of time in traffic. We didn't have these highways. I know Elder Quite's time now it was a little bit more complex. We didn't have these highways we have today, where you connect and come fast to Nairobi. So you spend more time. Fares are also expensive. Those places, you spend more to look for water. You don't have electricity. So if you're also going to school in the evening, you have to do your personal studies. It's terribly inconveniencing to do those kind of things. So you also you realize that this quarter thing is not working. That's why I'm saying they are textbook, but they are very difficult. They require a lot of perseverance to live out of them. The second one is set financial goals. Financial goals, you see, when you are setting the goals, they are based on your earning capacity. They are not based on things that are outside your reach. So like for me, if I say like, okay, fine, I'm paying my tithes as a Christian. I want to pay my rent. I want to pay my water and so bills. I've got college loan to repay back. I have my family to support, nuclear and extended. I got my mom. I want to pay for her NHIF. I want to pay for her this kind of thing. And sometimes when they have guests in the village, they tell you so-and-so is coming. You have to chip in here, stuff like that. So you have to do something like that. And also you have your future to take care of. Now I'm seeing here 60% are young people. They're planning to get married. They plan to do their masters. Some considering locally, other overseas. So those kind of things. So those are things that should be able to guide how you plan the funds you earn or you get. Even if you're in business, you don't intend your business to stagnate. You want it to grow. You need to put in more money into it. How do you do that? You do a lot of retained earnings so that your capital can grow. When your capital grows, you are able to expand, as in put more, how do you call it, inputs into the company. Besides the setting goals, create a budget. This is also another difficult one, even to me as a person. Sometimes I create a budget like out of this, I plan to do this. Then something comes in that distorts your budget. Or you realize again in the budget you created, you can forgo something. But midway after having forgone it, realize I ought to have done this. So there need to be a lot of discipline with the budgets that we've created or that we create to enable us scale through debt management. Then number one, you remember, we said like earn more. By earning more, what it meant was to spend less than you earn. When I spend less, it means like my budget has to be very lean, only on essentials or things that are extremely necessary for my living. When that is done, you end up having something called a pool of funds that you have not spent for the previous month. I remember one friend of mine used to say, like, salaries cannot meet in an account. I mean, you understand what I mean? I mean, we're in September. It's bad manners for salary for August to meet the salary for July in my account. So it has to find somewhere. So people would start tasting food in all funny places in Nairobi. No, I went here, I do this. So stop that kind of habit. They must meet. When they meet is when you create what is called the emergency fund. So if you got the discipline that salary payments must meet, so let them have a handshake in your account. So let July meet August. Let the 2 months meet September. Over time, you create a pool. As you do the pool, you find it easy to pay off some debts, especially if you run the unsecured debt. Most of the time, we operate credit cards. So on a credit card, you may say, my excess expenditure, despite you having set a budget, is 5% or 10% of my net earnings. So when you have the pool of funds, you are able to settle that with very little effort on your own. And remember, maybe just to mention, credit card is the most expensive unsecured debt we have globally. Globally. Perhaps maybe if we have another session, Elkanah will tell you that in the US, credit card reigns supreme. Someone could be having 15 of them. From the normal circle to the big banks. Someone has credit card for Wells Fargo, they have for Citi, they have for American Bank, all those kind of things. So each one of them runs. So when you get your money, day the paycheck comes in, the next morning you don't have money because you paid all of them. Then you start the cycle again. Literally, you end up not having any emergency fund. And more so for us as Africans, we are still very social or communal in living. It is good to have an emergency fund. It's very difficult, but now we are in the house of God and we are God's children. God is a God of surpluses. You remember what he did on every seventh day for the Israelites. He provided manna for the next day. So as Christians, we are called to live as examples. We need to be having surplus and pay debt. Number 6 would be to be able to invest. We can only invest when we have extra. Right? When I have a side hustle, it can only pick up when I've been able to put something into it and let it grow. So until I have a surplus, I cannot invest. And by having an investment, it creates or it gives the opportunity to earn more. You see where now there's the connection of earning more or spending less than you earn. So those are the 6 steps that we could put in practice as Christians to be able to run out. Now, for us living in Kenya, there are particular things that affect our access to credit. Now, if you wanted to be indebted to an institution, like you came to a bank, you wanted to borrow money, there is something that is called credit reference. Now, credit reference is a measure of the creditworthiness of a borrower to show how well you have how well you've managed yourself financially, and it gives the financial institution or the lender a future view of your behavior with the money that they may advance to you. So the scores are, I think, a range between 200 to 900, with the least being a very risky person. Basically, it's normally, if you look at the graph, it normally shows red. Then as you advance, you get to 750, 800, up to 900, you are very green. So the person who is green, based on those scores, they'll not ask a lot of questions. But if you are orange going into red, you'd even think that where these guys, if they don't want to give me this money, they can still tell me, no, just straight on. But you have a lot of questions, a lot of paperwork to do. So there are things, out of that, there are things that is called obligor risk rating. It works between -3 to, I think, +3. So every financial institution has theirs, including SACCOs. You may think SACCOs are safe haven. You're borrowing against your money, but the reason why you take on guarantors is to make sure that they don't lose the money that they've given you. Yours was only a third of it, because most SACCOs do, I think, 3 times your savings. So how do they protect your guarantors and yourself and themselves from it? That is why they look at it and tell you, in as much as your savings are 300, consider this. They would go with you into that conversation. Consider taking this much that is not, you are not going to endanger more people and the institution as well. So obligor risk rating enables them to rate you based on the amount of facility that you want. From -3 to +3, thereabout. Others go up to +8, depending on the strength of the institution. Then the other aspect of it is something called loss given default. Now, loss given default is a factor of your credit score and the obligor risk rating. It enables the institution, or it gives the institution a picture of what might happen when you default, or when probably you will default. They know that when I have the facility, they advance me money in September, I will be a very good person the first 4 months. Then in the 5th month, I'll start having trouble. They'll get to know that by looking at your credit history that is available on the credit score, the CRB. Because CRB will say how long you took with some loan, which one was paid in time, after how long, or if you have had a missed repayment in your premiums, like I know I should be paying this monthly, then you default, the credit score will pick up that. So the loss given default gives the institution that is intending to advance you money how you might behave sometime in the line of that facility. So it is important as well that as you get into debt, sometimes you go with all your hands on the table, that I've had this facility, I've not been able to do 1, 2, 3. This is the reason that this happens, or this is what to do at this level. So it makes it easier for them to appreciate that history, but now convert to become more forward-looking. Now, once you've gotten into debt, even as an individual, what do we need to do? The media has had a lot of stories on how people have dealt with debt. Others have ended up taking their own lives. Others have opted to escape, run away. You've seen people run out of the country because of debt. Others have opted to be a little bit more honorable and pay. So the first thing that we are required, or we may need to do when we're in debt, is to know how deep you are in that debt situation. And once you've identified how indebted you are, if it is to an institution, a bank, or an individual, or whichever case it may be, it is good to have a conversation with those people on a repayment or a remediation plan. Most of the time, the debts that gives us trouble are the ones that we owe to financial institutions. See, those guys, sometimes they are faceless. They really don't care what is happening. I remember COVID time, it was very difficult, especially for those who do logistics, those whose businesses are in hospitality, those in the educational sector. They were really hit hard. I remember there's a school that converted their school playground into a farm. Classes were converted into chicken rearing pens and cow sheds just to make ends meet, because they had loans to pay, but people must eat outside here. So it also opened for them it opened their eyes to other business opportunities that could make more money out of. So those that approach institutions to discuss around their debt, they can give you either rebates, waivers, restructures. What this means is a rebate is where you are given concession for some time. We didn't know when COVID would end. Everybody else was at a standstill. So they tell you, okay, fine, so long as we're still this problem, we'll wait for another 6 months to see what will happen. In the meantime, what can you do? Then you have a discussion. I'm unable to make anything. Just freeze this thing for me. Hold it on for me until I get over this, or until this gets over. There are people whom they could understand, but the people whom, as I said, their history betrayed them. So you just have very difficult conversations towards that. Now, concessions are where they tell you, okay, fine. If you are able to pay interest only, pay it. Don't pay the premium. You'll pay premium when you start getting into business proper. There are those also who went or would discuss restructures, and they're still applicable. It's only that time. Those are things that are applicable today with financial institutions. If you're in business or personally, we have debts that we're struggling to pay, there are the various mechanisms we can use to mitigate ourselves. In fact, when you go into these kind of things, it prevents the institution aggravating your credit score. It is better you have a discussion with them than go silent. Then when they don't see you past 90 days, they believe you've absconded. So they start classifying you as a bad debtor. The next time you approach someone else, you will have a bad history. So when you go through these processes, either a request for a rebate, concessions, a restructure is where a financial institution or a lender would look into what you owe them. Then they say, okay, fine, you've repaid this up to this level, this is what is owed. So they would make the facility look as if you are starting afresh. You understand what I'm saying? I had a loan for 100,000, I've been able to pay 40. So my outstanding amount is 60. So when I go for a restructure, they look at it as if I've borrowed 60. What that means is I will have a little longer period of time to repay. You remember I had 100,000 I was paying for 1 year. I've paid 40, 60. Now they'll stretch 60 for 1 year. That would mean my repayment premiums would go down, isn't it? Because I have a longer period for a slightly now lesser amount. Or they tell you, in the restructure, you'll start repaying us premiums after 4 months post the restructure. So it gives you a window period to breathe and organize yourself better in managing that. Ultimately, there are those who file for bankruptcy. This is now in the last end of your operating life. You can file for bankruptcy as an individual or as a corporate entity. So when you file for bankruptcy, it means you are not able to pay anything to anyone. And it means it's the end of your life financially. There's nowhere you will go and operate. You cannot do anything. If this church was also looking at those things, people who file for bankruptcy should not even be speaking by law. There are lawyers here will tell you you should not be doing anything. Even the village kettle dip, you should not take your kettle there to dip. As someone who has filed for bankruptcy, it's a very sad end to your financial life. You don't dream to get there. At least get to the restructure point. Restructure. Don't go to receivership or file for bankruptcy. So, out of these, I would want to get either responses from us for unclear points or an addition to what we can discuss as Christians. Pastor should have been coming in here as well to help with the conversation. But the questions are welcome. Thank you. Sorry.
Happy Sabbath.
Happy day.
I just got curious on the bankruptcy part. Is it that now once you get there you can't get out of it, or there's a way out of it?
Yes, maybe I don't know why I've been having a notion that a debt is only must always have the interest aspect of it. Because like now, when we talked of the debt in the village where you borrow from the shops, I don't know whether you can call that one a debt, because I have been thinking that one you can call it an advance. You know, you are eating ahead. You know, you are eating ahead before you get your. Okay, we have always taken debt to mean that this is money you take. When you return it with an interest. So, okay, I was also, maybe a clarification. In instances where you are taking a debt, I am advising that always know where you will get the money to return instantly. Don't take a debt unless it's for business, but if you are taking a debt for anything outside, maybe the business, and you don't have an immediate source, you are sure of where you are going to get to return to that money, it will really be very unwise to take it, okay, to go for that debt if you do not have the source from which you are going to refund that debt and as soon as possible. Yeah, thank you. And okay, God says that we are to be lenders, but not borrowers. God knows that time comes when we will be lacking. And in that time, we should pray that we get out of that time soonest, because it's not God's wish to be in that hole.
Happy Sabbath, everyone. Happy day. I think for me, when I heard about debt, I said, this one I have to come in and just hear and learn. If there's someone who's made big mistakes, is this guy standing here. I've made huge mistakes. I'm currently servicing a loan that is 42% annum. Interest. 42%. I don't know if you can, the highest right now in the banking sector is what, 19%? Yeah. 19%. So I've serviced a loan, 42%, 3-year loan. I'm finishing in the next 6 months. I paid yesterday that payment that I pay every month, and it's very painful. And the way I made this mistake, and I was hoping you will talk about it, was on how to calculate the cost of debt. A lot of people just go to the bank, and you just see, you really want the money, but you really don't take time to calculate the cost of that money, the cost of interest the charge is giving you. When you're starting out as, let's say, an entrepreneur, you will not have the benefit of Kina elder here. They will not look at you. Olonde will be like, you first of all, go and come back when you're 1 year old or when you are 2 years. Right now, we cannot handle you. We don't know who you are. We think you are a very high risk. The banks, the big, you're talking about KCB, ABSA, Stanchart, all these big banks, they will not listen to you. Am I lying, Olonde? Am I telling the truth or am I lying? Telling the truth. They will not. They will say, especially if it's something that is not proven. If you want a matatu, they will give, because matatu is a proven industry, it is a competitive market, easy entry, and you get your normal profits, just like everybody else. They know this is how much everybody else is making, so if you're going to get this, they'll be like, if you want a matatu, it's okay. But if you're like me, who is saying, I want to open a laundromat, they're like, what is that? What are you going to be doing? They will not listen to you. They will tell you, go fast and start, and then you come after 2 years. If you're doing well, we can talk. And so what are the options do you have? You have either your family to give you money. Sindio? Your family will give you money. Let's say if you you're able to convince your parents, or you're able to convince your sibling, I have this idea, I want to do this. So that is your first option. Your second option, your other option is these guys you keep hearing, they're called platinum credit. There's like for me, the one that got me is called Musoni. If you see Musoni, weka nini your flags like this. That is right now, even if you say it, inafanya roho yangu inaanguka. Musoni. Which else? Wacha tuwaseme. Nani, who else? Somebody who's also done a mistake like me. Me, I've done both platinum, I've made that mistake. I've done Musoni, that is what I'm trying to get out. Somebody else who knows another banking institution? Huh? Ama nyinyi amna hiyo nini? Huh? Microfinance. Watu wanajiita microfinance. You need to be very careful. So when you're going to these loans, they tell you the interest is 6% or it's 3%. But you're like, what is 3%? 3%, is it 3% per annum? You need to know, is it 3% per annum or is it 3% per month or per day? Yani, can you imagine, mtu amesoma kama, yani nimeenda KU, nimepata degree, I did not think to ask such a simple thing as this percentage, what does it mean? By that point, my muscles, my business was at least, I was able. So I just looked at the repayment plan. And I had this idea that I'll just take it and then I'll knock it off haraka. I did not look at the interest rate, what the fine print that you're signing. My friends, this thing called loan calculator, have it always, even if it's at work, have it as a bookmark, so that you make informed choice. Just put the amount that you're borrowing, the interest rate that you're borrowing at, and the repayment period, and then do an amortization table. Amortization table is the one that shows this is how much goes to interest, this is how much goes to principal, and then make a decision based on that. I borrowed a loan of 1 million from Musoni. By the end of me paying, I'll have paid 1.8 million. That is 800 umepatia tu mutu for nothing. Me when I talk, I tell you guys are thieves and God is going to punish you because that is not right. A loan, I later learned when I now go to Paul and I ask for the same loan, I'm like, Paul, how can you be charging me this amount and who could these guys are charging me? If I go to these guys for that same 1 million, these guys will charge me maybe 27, 28. Unaona? Musoni will charge you 50,000 shillings. That is marangapi? Marambili. I don't know how I've done it by the grace of God. But I said anytime I'll talk to people about debt, I will tell them about my experience. So the first thing that you need to do, calculate the cost of debt and also do an amortization table. An amortization table is good for this reason. You get to see, okay, in my first year, if I don't do something, most of my money will be just going to service interest. Sometimes it is very important that you knock off part of the principal to make sure that you're not just paying, you're faithful, but all you're doing is just you're paying interest. Unalipa tu interest. Unalipa tu interest. A very small amount of your money goes to the principal. So when you know the amortization table, you know when I have an extra money like this, I need to go and knock off what? Some of the principal, so that it brings you, let's say if you are at schedule, you're paying the seventh nini. If you knock off the principal, you can come down to maybe the 20th payment. No. So you need to know exactly, and some of these institutions, they give you these things before you sign. They give you. It is very important that you go and through these things and understand and have a plan on how you can be able to nini. I always say, always don't wait and stay with the loan mpaka mwisho. Try to clear as fast as possible. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was, and I was hoping this is a question now. How do you know when you're over leveraged? You need to talk about that. What are the signs and how can you know? Over leverage is when you've borrowed too much, it starts getting, you're borrowing to pay off this person. And how can someone know when they're over leverage? I was hoping you could also touch on that. But these guys you hear about, Platinum Credit, Musoni, they're all here and they're all trying. They especially like young people whom they know when they go to this guy, they'll not listen to him. But have a plan. Have a very good plan on how you can be able and understand the cost of that debt. Thank you.
Can I just respond? I think we're running out of time, but I want to respond to the three before I forget. I don't have a big memory in my head. So we've had three issues, one around bankruptcy and a way out. Indeed, when you are declared bankrupt, it doesn't mean it's the end of you. The people you owe, you still owe them. But you can now approach a financier or the person who declared you or what necessitated you to be declared bankrupt. You can engage a lawyer, you can engage a financial advisor to advise you on how to consolidate the things that you have so that you can work towards regaining your solvent status. You can work towards regaining your solvent status. But again, for the issue of debt, what we talked about where you got a folio with a shopkeeper, Elder said, indeed, yes, it may not be classified as a classical debt, but so long as you are spending what you don't have outrightly, it's a debt, whichever way you want to look at it. Okay, fine. Thanks. I'm being told we are about to log into the Hope for Africa event, which is coming up. So we may just need to close up. But it is good also to know who you are borrowing from and what they are offering from what Elekana is saying. Remember, the rates that you are quoting are way above the normal conservative banking cycles. So what happens is, especially for microfinance, they have very stringent regulatory framework which requires them to be extremely tight in their collections. So by being tight in collections means they have to have higher rates so that if I default, the next person who is paying covers for me. So when Elkan is talking about 40%, he's covering for like 3 people who defaulted 6 months ago. So it's normally safer. They are easy to acquire, but very complex or expensive in servicing. So that is something we may need to know. Sometimes even the reason why they get that high is because when you contract the facility or the debt, if you miss a repayment, it forms part of the capital or the loan that was advanced to you. I'm supposed to pay 10,000 every month, and I took a loan of 100,000. If in one of the months I default on 10,000 and I have an outstanding of 90,000, immediately next month I owe them 100,000 shillings at the same rate. So that makes sense. I hope I've clarified that. So that is one of the things that sometimes compound the debt situation or the indebtedness of us to other institutions or in our life cycles. There is a story that I think it is important for us to share as Seventh-day Adventists. This aspect of tithing, it's a real thing that works. Whenever I pay my tithes honestly, that month, besides the mental freedom, my money stays with me longer. Try it and you'll experience it. My money stays with me longer when you pay your tithes. Basically, the salary for the last month meets the salary for this month. If I don't, in the expectation that I'll catch up next month, I don't get to mid-month. So what that Bible verse says that our pockets will get a hole there. It is true. I also have a cousin who constantly was paying tithe, but for asking for something to happen in his farm. When he retires, he said, when I retire, I want this to happen. So he did all that. When he retired, of course, he is an agriculturalist, so he wanted to do farming at home. So when he retired, a geyser formed out of his farm. So he has access to water to enable him to do what he does. So this is something that I saw happen with him. And that thing, out of a dry place, the water is there. So as Adventists, the biblical principles that we have around money and how we manage it, we need to honor them and keep them through. I wish we could have a little more time. We need to hand over to the team handling Hope for Africa. So shall we rise up and pray? We're praying, mighty and loving Father in heaven, and to thank you for this afternoon session that you've let your Spirit come and guide us. Lord in heaven, if there are things that we may have spoken or information that we may have not clarified well, I pray that you may come and reach each one of us to provide more clarification. But above all, Father in heaven, we acknowledge you are the owner of gold and silver of our lives. As we seek for it, I pray that you bless us, give us clarity of mind, that we might seek this honestly. When we get it, Lord in heaven, give us the opportunity and the inspiration to return to you what belongs to you. Bless each one of us in our pursuits, in our businesses, those of us looking for employment. I pray that you may lead them into those places that would give them to honor you more. As we go ahead with the day's programs, may you continue to bless each one of us. Those of us who are outside, may your Spirit continue to love and give us enrichment. This is my prayer to you, trusting and believing in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you so much.
Happy Sabbath once more. Happy day. Yes, now the day which you have been waiting for in order to have the African net to begin has arrived. May I say that we are very lucky that this program is being run here in Kenya for the whole of Africa, because there was a possibility that it could have either gone to Nigeria or gone to Angola, but now it is in the city. The reason as why we are not at New Life is because the space is too small, but we are lucky that we are having a satellite place here, and it is important to know that this is an opportunity for us, for those people whom we have been inviting, whom we have been evangelizing to come here in order to listen at the end of the day. After the evangelistic campaign, they will have to go for baptism. Therefore, I encourage you that if you have a friend, invite a friend and an Adventist. If you have a neighbor, if you have a brother whom you want to meet, you want him to meet Jesus Christ, invite him in order to come and be able to share this word of God, because it is the hope for Africa that we require. Therefore, let us not tire with these invitations. let us invite them. It will run from today until 16th of this month. And it will be good that if we can be able to visit this place in order to get the word of God directly from from New Life. The second thing that I want to say is that the program begins at 4:50, and I see that it's 4:52, and it runs until today. It will run until 7:30. Of course, 8 p.m., but the preacher will have ended his sermon at 7:30. That is Pastor Mark Finley. Therefore, I'm encouraging us that we stay in this place as we look at how the program is being introduced and how it will run. We'll have 3 programs. We'll have the health program, and we'll have the family life program. And they are very powerful speakers who will be taking us through. For instance, the health program will be taken by Dr. Feresa Sengaye, and the family life, David Omandi, that is from Tanzania. That is Tanzania, and I think from Uganda. Therefore, I'm praying that we may sit. Let us be patient, and then we can be able to do this. We can be able to attend to this program. Let me pray as we usher in this, and as the technical committee, technical team is setting up, and then we can have the choristers sing 1 or 2 items after I pray as we wait for them to project. Let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, the long-awaited day has come. We have been waiting for this, and we have been yearning for you to speak to us. Indeed, someone said that if we cannot be able to enjoy worshiping you on this earth, then it will be boring in heaven. As we plan, Father, to enter into heaven, we pray that you may give us the heart to worship you anytime, anywhere. As the preacher will be working and the preacher will be preaching, and as we will be having other programs, we pray that you may meet us at our points of need, for we have prayed in Jesus' name. Amen. Choristers? Oh, it's up. Thank you.
I invite you to stand so that you can.
On the shores of Africa, it is an absolute privilege for me to be here. Absolute privilege. And also to be working with my long-term friends, Mark and Ernestine Finley, who are doing such tremendous work around the world. So I'm just privileged to be here. I bring you greetings from the UK, from Great Britain. Anybody been to Great Britain? Well, you're privileged to be here. Let me tell you that, because we don't have the weather that you have. We're absolutely, it's always raining. So when I said I was coming to Kenya, they said to me, can you take us with you? Sadly, I couldn't, but it's so great for us to be, or for me to be here. Look, I'm going to be talking to you throughout these 2 weeks about how to reverse diseases. That has been my passion since I was a very young man. And how to reverse things like diabetes, high blood pressure, all of these ailments that we feel we have to live with. But before we do that, because this is a health event, I'm going to need everybody to stand for me. Everybody stand. Those people watching online, I need you to stand as well. Yes, you think I can't see you, I can see you. Everybody needs to stand. Very good. So that's good. You've passed the first test. You can actually stand. Now, what I now want to do is ask you a few questions. If you can say yes to the questions, stay standing. If no, sit down. Simple, right? So first question.